开一个。 Thank you very much. Oh, is this on? Testing one. Thank you very much. It is? Okay, good. We're jamming for you today, and we're never quite sure what we're actually going to do. Yesterday we had a different soloist, Mr. Rob Verdi, but today we have... I'm... Okay. Okay. I can't hear it up here, so... Okay. Anyway, we're going to do... we're going to kind of do a history of jazz, I guess. And we're going to go back to the 20s. Is this right?
1926.
We're going back to 1926. We're going to do a tune. Anybody heard of Louis Armstrong? Hey!
Good.
Yeah, who? Yeah. Yeah, right.
Good. I'm definitely proud of y'all.
We're going to do a tune that Louis Armstrong did. It's on you got it there. It's a thing, it combines trumpet and food at the same time. And it's called Cornet Chop Suey.
Did somebody get two of these? Did I misplace something? Yeah. Ah. Thank you, sir.
You want to bring your banjo out?
You brought your banjo?
This didn't happen yesterday.
We don't have mic, Hey, Nicole, maybe you can ask him to put the mic in there.
I can put the vocal mic on.
Vocal microphone.
Oh, and he's
Yeah.
gonna turn his up, and then I'll put the vocal mic on the band.
We don't always get a chance to have Mike bring his banjo, and we try and tell him not to bring it, but he brought it anyway. So Mike can play just about any stringed instrument that there is. Well, not everyone, but he.
Oh.
Wow, it's tuned at the factory and everything. That's perfect. By the way, along the way, and I didn't mention this before, but if you have any questions for anybody about what the heck we're trying to do up here, I'd be interested to hear them. We had some good questions yesterday about all kinds of variety of things. So if you have something that you want to form in your mind as we're playing, we'd love to answer them if you could. All right, 1926. Can you want to set the scene?
Wow. So Louis Armstrong was in Chicago, I believe, at this time, with a group called the Hot Five. And his hero, he grew up in Louisiana. He grew up in New Orleans. And so it was kind of a hotbed of trumpet players. And there was a particular hot trumpet player called King Oliver that was pretty much, he was the guy that Louis Armstrong looked up to. And he happened to go to Chicago with King Oliver and started playing with him in a show. And it's kind of, there's kind of myth and legend about this. But Louis Armstrong played so well that it really kind of frightened King Oliver. And King Oliver was this great trumpet player. And so Louis Armstrong was just a kid. He was probably in his early 20s, if that. And he would play harmonies to King Oliver's lead lines. And King Oliver went so far as to cover up his hand with a handkerchief, so Louis couldn't see what he was playing. But it's kind of a fallacy, because that's not the way that you learn to do that. You can't look at somebody's fingers and go, "Oh, this is what's happening," and process it all in that time. It's just that Louis had such a great set of ears that he could play harmonies to anything. And so Louis was like the real first jazz virtuoso trumpet player. He had a tremendous amount of skill, and he turned into this ambassador of jazz, and is absolutely my favorite trumpet player ever to touch the instrument. It's something about that he transcended jazz, and it became bigger than that. It was this pop music phenomena over his whole lifetime. So how many of you guys have heard "What a Wonderful World"? Yeah, everybody. Everybody plays that at their wedding. Everybody does. And it's something that you can't get away from. And Louis Armstrong influenced not only trumpet players, but vocalists as well. it was somebody said that the way that Billie Holiday sang, it was just Louis Armstrong in a woman's with a woman's timbre. That it was the same thing. All this, Louis doesn't have a particularly beautiful voice. It's this gravelly, growly, really wonderful voice that transcends musical genres. And so if you can check out any of Louis's music, please do.
I think there's, in the jazz world, there's a few people who've been dropped from wherever who came to this earth to change everything. Louis Armstrong, I think, was one of the very first. Charlie Parker came out of nowhere and actually changed everything, John Coltrane. But I think Charlie Parker, to me, Charlie Parker and Louis Armstrong were the two people who just literally changed what was even possible. Maybe Jocko. But I mean, there are just those few people who are dropped here, and Louis was definitely one of them. I got a chance to see him back in the old days at Disneyland when I was young.
At Disneyland, going along with what Tom says, is that there were these big band concerts at Disneyland on the Carnation Square stage that is no longer there. I don't think.
It's a Princess stage now.
Yeah, perfect. On the Princess stage, you would have some of the largest big bands. It's like having Justin Timberlake on the Carnation Plaza stage. Like people saw Buddy Rich, they saw Duke Ellington, they saw Count Basie. All this great music that was, at that time, it was gradually going away. I mean, these guys were dying off. And you were able to pay your admission and go see these incredible bands, just for the price of admission. It's comparable to seeing Miley Cyrus at Disneyland, just for the admission ticket. It was really something that doesn't exist anymore that I wish did.
I would go on break to go over see like the Buddy Rich band, and the Buddy Rich band would be up there, and it was all these like really cool guys from the '70s and stuff, and I'd be standing there off on the side of the bandstand with my straw hat, my green vest, my red coat, and brown yellow shoes I had. So in my Disney uniform, so I looked the perfect part. And I think the most mortifying thing is that Dizzy Gillespie, this great trumpet player, happened to come to Disneyland. Well, he was working there, and he came down to New Orleans Square, and I'm standing in front of Dizzy Gillespie, probably one of the world's freaking greatest trumpet players, in my straw hat, red coat, green vest, and just feeling like an idiot. Anyway. Cornet Chop Suey by Louis Armstrong. So is this a transcription of?
Yeah, this is a transcription.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. You want to play a banjo solo at B? The second time?
Sure,
It just repeats once.
Sure.
And then we go from...
Just once, though.
Yeah, and then we go on to D after you play.
Just once, yeah.
Well, right, you can play as many times as you would like.
No, I'll just do plenty. Yeah.
So this all starts with D.
All right.
So you guys don't come in.
Okay. And he was playing like that in like 1926, which was like scaring everybody to death.
Yep.
So, and he kept playing like that. And his singing, I think he got almost more famous kind of for his singing than anything. You know. Well, let's see. Yeah, go ahead.
There's a lot of there's several great records of Louis Armstrong and Ella Fitzgerald that if you're looking for like a starting place and you just love beautiful music, that any one of those records with Louis and Ella are just, it's like the epitome of like popular music, like how good it can be with both of them singing. So check it out.
After that, we kind of switched eras, and we could put the banjo's gone.
Should I tell them about that banjo?
Yeah, tell them about the banjo.
I'll tell you about this banjo.
Is there a story about the banjo?
No, this is a story about the banjo in history. Back then, okay, there weren't any guitars that had any pickups or anything, right? So the loudest instrument was the banjo, and that's why it was so popular. It was the most popular instrument at the time, for at least playing in the rhythm section, besides the bass and drums. This particular instrument's like 1922. It's called a trap door. As you can see, this is pre-resonator, and I'll tell you about the resonator after. See, this thing slides out, and this is where you get your volume from, okay?
What do you put in there?
Yeah.
Put a holster. Yeah. So anyhow, you see this? So you pull this out, and then you clip it on. And this is where your volume comes from. It's coming out of here. So if you were to mic it, it'd probably be best to mic it here. And this is what's called a tenor banjo. Now, what's really cool about this thing is that this is pre-Gibson guitars, okay? They haven't even gotten into it yet. And if you look at the inside, it says Gibson Mandolin and Guitar Company. So they just started making guitars, right? Their big thing were it was mandolins and banjos too, right? So that's an interesting thing because I think the electric guitar was invented in the 30s, you know, and that's when it became prominent as a solo instrument, probably with Charlie Christian and those guys, you know. But pre that, it was more just a chordal instrument because it wasn't loud enough. This was the loudest instrument. So it's interesting that there's so much, there were so many great banjo players too, you know, at that time. But it's interesting how things change because if the guitar hadn't been, you know, they found the pickup for it, probably Jimi Hendrix would have been playing this, you know.
That would have been funny.
And that would have been funny. Yeah. But there were so many great banjo players, and there's recordings of many of them. But I find it funny that this instrument, because of how loud it was, you know, the resonator. You'll see banjos with resonators on the outside. They're a lot heavier and they're really loud. They're prominently loud. Now there's a difference between the 4-string. This is a tenor banjo, and it's a little smaller. And if you tune it, I'm tuning it in guitar tuning, but it's usually tuned in fifths. So it's really high up here, you know, when you play it. The plectrum is tuned like a guitar. The 5-string is tuned like it's in key of G with the lowest note G, right? And that's more known for bluegrass, you know. And that came from Tennessee and the Smoky Mountains, you know. Very interesting how that developed too. They're all relatives of each other, but the functions are completely different. This is definitely Dixieland style. Bluegrass is more like, you know, pretty much like any country stuff or anything. You guys familiar with like Bella Fleck or anybody like that? I mean, that guy's like a wizard, you know. In fact, he's got a classical guitar or a classical banjo album that sounds like harpsichord, and he plays all Bach. It's really unbelievable. I'd suggest you go out there and get it because the first time I put it on, I said, "Is this really a banjo?" I mean. So it's amazing what this instrument can do, you know, in the right hands, you know. But it's cool. The history of it's really cool.
If you're like a working guitar player, you have to play banjo,
mandolin,
guitar, acoustic guitars, mandolin,
acoustic guitars, all acoustic guitars, 12-string, high strung, which is like the high notes of a 12-string set. So you tune them up an octave.
And then
so
ukulele.
Ukulele, yeah, definitely ukulele.
So what, like you played The Lion King? Did you play that or some?
Yeah, I played the Lion King.
What did you all have to play on that?
I played. I did play ukulele on that. I played classical guitar. There was a huge classical guitar part with all the stuff written out. There was even, because the guy in New York that played it played Imbera. You know what that is? Thumb piano.
Oh, yeah.
So he played it, and so it got put in the show. So every guitar player had to learn this part for parts of the Lion King. So he had to learn how to play that, And I'm trying. There wasn't any steel string. I do play lap steel. Lap steel. I don't play really. I sort of play around with it. Pedal steel. And that's a completely different ballgame because that has pedals that shift it chromatically. That's a very hard instrument and completely different beast. But lap steel is like you tune it like a dobro, which is, DAD or DVD, then GBD. It's tuned like a open guitar, kind of like DAD-GAD kind of thing. Like what Jimmy Page did. And you use a slide with it, and basically you're getting all major, and you can get minor chords. It's interesting because it truly is. It became a Hawaiian thing, but now it's Hawaiian and country. Yeah. That's a cool instrument, too, because it can get a lot of different flavors out of it.
Okay, we can move up an era then.
Yeah,
We're
we
gonna,
can.
Okay.
We can move up. Here we go.
Here we go. Throw the banjo out the door. After the Dixieland era, which was kind of actually started around 1916, at least some of the first recordings, and it went through. There's Dixieland bands today, but it was really popular in the 20s. There was another style of music. And musicians got sick of like piano players were going all triads. It got really sickening. And I know, it's horrible. But anyway, along the way, they decided that music changed. People got a little more interested in like more contemporary chords, 13th chords, those kind. Well, that's a little later, but like 13th chords and stuff like that. So that was a very common thing to move the music along. And so the next era was actually the swing era, which was for dancing. Which was actually you can explain, the swing era was more for dancing like from World War II, right? Is that correct? And so we're going to play a tune that was popular during that time. If you'd like to get up and dance, don't. We're going to do, did you want to do?
Sure, I forget what it was, though.
You said Tuxedo Junction.
Tuxedo Junction. Okay.
All right, we're going to do Tuxedo Junction. Is that a Glenn Miller tune? I believe it is. And have you got it there?
I do.
All right, what key?
It's in B flat.
It's in B flat. Okay.
Oh, I want to get my this thing.
Oh, well, you've got a mute there. What does that do?
I do. This is a plunger. I actually bought it at Lowe's. Oh, yeah, I got to talk in the mic. This is a plunger that I bought from Lowe's because Lowe's is the only one that carries them this size. And I always go to the hardware store and take the plunger up there, and then I buy it and then hand the cashier the stick, and I go, here, you can use this. I don't need this. And I walk away with just the plunger part, leaving them very, very confused. But what I do with this, should I demonstrate?
Why don't you demonstrate while you have that in your hand there? Yeah. There it is. And actually, you can hear him playing at Lowe's. He's working there. He's got a gig there.
I am the professional in the plumbing department.
All All right, we're going to do a tune that moved things a little bit different. Obviously, we're going to have guitar on this, and the beat is going to be a little bit different. We're going to play more. We're going to play hipper, cooler, whatever that means.
This start out right on the head.
Sure. You
So I think that's.
okay? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. John Christensen on the mute. You know, we didn't talk about the difference in like, Rick, you've got to, every time you do a job, you have to kind of bend to whatever the job is. What are the different styles or the different ways that you have to play, like from the last tune to this tune? What are the things that you're thinking about? But first, a microphone.
No, bring it here.
Closer.
No, I have to tease. I tease because I love. I don't know. Well, yeah, so I'm playing all acoustic bass, and originally with jazz, it started out not as acoustic bass, but they called it wind bass, which was either like tuba or sousaphone, one of those, you know. And if you go to New Orleans, you'll hear traditional jazz bands that still use that, and it's a great sound. But it became acoustic bass, and it's a tough instrument to play. The strings back then were very high, and it was gut strings. Now they're steel strings, but back then it was gut. And there are guys that are great at it. They did slapping. And I don't slap on acoustic bass.
Oh, come on, you flip it
I wish
around.
I know. But back in the 30s, you couldn't get a gig unless you slapped, you know. And Milt Hinton was amazing that way. I heard him ages ago. He was 80, and he had more energy than anyone else. It was incredible to hear him play slap bass. But the little bit I know of it,
I can hold, yeah. Ah.
So they would slap after the beats, and you actually hear it a lot on Elvis Presley records, the early ones. I'm trying to remember one of the tunes I heard just recently, and I always thought it was the drummer doing it, and I realized, it's a bass player. But he was slapping on the offbeats. However, they can do that.
You get more money for that?
Yeah, apparently you do.
Oh, yeah.
But for me, I learned later and learned a classical way. You know, I started with electric bass, but I also came to learn to play with a bow because I wanted to follow the tradition of the instrument and learn how to play it that way. So I spent a lot of time doing that and playing the way I do with pizzicato style with my fingers. But then I picked up electric bass also, and on that, there's slapping, there's finger style, there's pick style, there's, again, so much. So for me, it gets down to what's the gig call for? If I go to the Simpsons, sometimes it's me and another bass player, sometimes it's just me, but usually it's bowing the bass and occasionally playing some pits and playing electric. If I'm playing like a Broadway show, it'll be the same thing. You never know. If I go to play with Tom's band, most of the nights on this playing how I've been playing, which is 4-beat jazz, but it's also electric bass. So for me, that's been the way to do it, is be versatile and play different instruments that way. Some guys stick with just classical, and they make great careers for themselves that way. So, yeah.
Rick, why would there be two bass players on The Simpsons?
They just want to. It's more an orchestral date, so we're both playing orchestrally. We're both playing both parts. Sometimes for Family Guys, it's usually 4 basses. Wow. Crazy, isn't it? Did you know they record new music every episode? Yeah, every episode they record new music, and
There's not that much of it going on.
No, it used to be a lot more, but so these are kind of almost throwbacks. But for The Simpsons, Matt Groening said, I want live orchestra because the characters are already artificial. So I want something to contrast that. Mm-hmm. So that's why he always has live musicians.
Alf Clausen does.
Yeah, Alf. And he has his son helping out now too also.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and another guy, I can't remember his name now, but he's also very good. Greg something or other.
I think at some point, like from you get residuals from that?
I don't from that, no.
Oh, you don't?
No.
Because somewhere, they always say that at any time of day, The Simpsons is on somewhere.
Well, Alf is very happy about that,
Alf
the
is-
composer. If you compose the main title for a show, you'll get residuals. That is, you'll have money coming in for years afterwards. A friend of mine was a composer for the TV show Jag that you guys probably don't remember, but it was a popular CBS show, and it was on for 10 years. And he and I went on a bike ride recently. He goes, I'm so glad I have royalties.
Yeah.
You know? So he's still making money from that TV show from all those years ago. Anyway, that's what I'm doing with this thing. is mostly 4-beat. So, but you heard, it's kind of a contrast. We start off with just 2-beat, where I'm playing 1 and 3, and now on Tuxedo Junction, sometimes it goes into 4. So usually I'm just doing this. The early jazz was just in B flat, same kind of thing. In Tuxedo Junction was this. And then later on, we actually started off with the blues, where I'm walking 4 beats. So instead of a blues, well, I started off with a 2-beat, didn't I? So what started happening is it moved to a 4-beat, and that was popular in the swing era with dancers. And all this music started out as dance music. And that's something I think a lot of jazz musicians forget, is it's still a dance music. And I think that's sometimes where, look, some guys are going to be artists and they're going to create whatever they want, and that's great. But they lose their audience because they don't feel like they can participate in it by moving their bodies some, you know. So I think it's important to still keep that jazz focus on dance. Anyway, that's me.
Okay. All right, keeping that jazz focus. Gordon, is there something you'd like to say?
I'm sure there is. Oh, yeah. Well, I guess I need a microphone, huh?
Oh, yeah. Microphones are big today. But it only goes that far.
Yeah, I've experienced that.
Thank you. Yeah, well, pretty much the bass and the drums correspond feel-wise. If he's playing in 2, I play in 2. There's no I'm playing in 4 and he's playing in 2. And so we sort of follow each other as far as if we're playing in the verse of a song, we're playing in 2, we go to the chorus, we're in 4, we come back. Our feels and grooves correspond to each other, sort of to build a foundation for everybody to play over. In more modern jazz, when Tom or Mike or John is taking a solo, we're usually in 4/4. The bass is usually walking, and that provides, you know, a pattern for them to improvise over. And do you think we ought to play something more modern now, or?
Well, you know what? We have a vocalist here today.
Oh, and then now we've got to follow the vocalist. She could be singing in 2 and
you know, that's the other part of this. The whole thing is that a lot of times
being an accompanist.
They as we're trying to confuse you by going like this. There's the part where that the lyrics. And there's that feeling of talking to the audience, and that's where the vocalist comes in. And we have today this lovely vocalist who I'm sure you don't know. She's from Huntington Beach. She's shy. She's young.
Totally.
And what did you want to do?
We can do Route 66 first,
All
but
right.
You should probably explain what your jam session, improvising, how this all goes. How you do the form.
We have now. None of us have played together before as a band. This is the first time. So, and as a matter of fact, you haven't played with Gordon Peak, I don't think, and maybe Rick or whatever, and they haven't played. So, yeah, and it's nice to, you know. So we've done this long enough to kind of know what happens at a jam session. Now, you do this all the time. You're playing all the time, so you have kind of an inkling of what goes on. We're going to do a tune called Route 66. We don't have music for this. It's a blues. You all know the blues because you've got head tunes that play that. But there's a form involved, and it's just one of these things that if you've played along with people over the years, you kind of know that there's a certain form. Obviously, we have a vocalist, so that's going to be, you know, the starting point. She's going to sing the melody. And then from there on, we generally have solos. And it kind of comes, in the old days, it kind of comes from the Dixieland days, where usually the saxophone player comes first, plays first. The trumpet player needs to rest. The trumpet player always needs to rest. That's one thing that's very important to know. And that's why he's laughing. And so the trumpet player, usually the horn section goes first. So if there's like a trumpet, or there'd be a saxophone, go first, the trumpet goes next, and if there's a trombone or something, then they play the next solo. Then it drops down to the rhythm section so the horns can rest. And so it usually goes to the guitar player, so Mike will play. And then I'll play, the piano player will play a solo. And all based on the blues. We don't know what we're going to do. We're kind of interacting. We're kind of talking to each other as we're playing. So we're supposed to be listening to each other. And then it goes down to the bass solo. Now, the bass solo is a very important part because that's the part where everybody starts talking in the audience. Right. And you can order food. They turn the blenders on. Yeah, the waitress can finally hear you. So that's when you always talk during the bass solo.
Or to get in a fight with someone. It's also really...
That's the Jaco Pastorius end of it. And then after that, and that's the usual routine. And that happens if it isn't even a blues. I mean, they order drinks in the bass solo no matter what the form is. That's funny. Okay. Anyway, at the end of that, then we usually, the drummer will get a chance to play, and you're never sure on gigs how the drummer is as far as like keeping time. Is he a good drummer? You know, is he not? Is he a little tipsy by the 12 o'clock, whatever? Yeah, you don't know. So generally, what we do to protect ourselves in the horn section is to only give him 4 bars at a time, and they call that fours. And so John will play 4 bars, and the drums will play 4 bars, and then I'll play 4 bars, and then the drums will play 4 bars, and so they call that fours. And so you will see that when somebody will do this on the bandstand. It happens all the time, play fours, and there's that. If it's down like this, that means the key signature. That's 4 flats. And and then after that, then we get back to the head of the tune, and that's where the vocalist comes back in. Hopefully, we haven't made it so confusing that she has no idea where we are.
You hope.
Yeah, and usually there's some kind of, there's this marking here, which means go back to the head, which means go back to the melody. So there's all these little things that kind of go on as we're doing stuff, because we've never played together before. We have no idea what's going to happen, and we have no idea what mute John's going to play, or how high and low he's going to play, or whatever. He has a different mute in now, and what is that you have there?
It's a Harmon mute.
It's a Harmon. What is that? Oh, that's like a jazz mute.
Yeah, this is the jazz mute. I figured I'd play some backgrounds behind Nicole, play around her, and not get in the way.
Okay.
And
Stay out of my way.
Stay out of your way. Always stay out of the vocalist's
because
way.
she gets violent when somebody's in her way.
For all of you that are in bands, always stay out of the way of the vocalist.
You know.
And this is the cool part about Nicole. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm back to that again. There are many things about Nicole. It's great, but one of the things is that for you who are the vocalists, counting off the tune is extremely important, and even cutting off the tune is extremely important. It sounds like it's a very simple thing, but a lot of vocalists forget about that. So you take it away. Then C.
Yeah.
4-bar intro.
Yeah.
Do 4 bars.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Well, if you ever plan to motor west, travel my way, take the highway, that's the best. Why don't you get your kicks on Route 66? Well, it winds from Chicago to LA, more than 2,000 miles all the way. Why don't you get your kicks on Route 66? Now you go through St. Louis, Joplin, Missouri, Oklahoma City's looking mighty pretty. You'll see Amarillo, Gallup, New Mexico, Flagstaff, Arizona. Don't forget Winona. prepare for this timely tip where you make that California trip. Why don't you get your kicks on Route 66? John Christensen. Mike Higgins. away, that's the best. Why don't you get your kicks on Route 66? Don't you know that it winds from Chicago to LA? Oh, more than 2,000 miles all the way. Come on and get your kicks on Route 66. Now you go through St. Louis, Joplin, Missouri, Oklahoma City's looking mighty pretty. Now you see Amarillo, Gallup, New Mexico, Flagstaff, Arizona. Don't forget Winona, Kingman, to San Bernardino. Wanna you get here for this time, Lita? Oh, and you make that California trip. Why don't you get your kicks on Route 66? Come on and get your kicks on Route 66. Come on and get your kicks on Route 66. Thank you. Ballad time.
Oh, well.
One thing that's fun about this style is what we do in this program is so. I grew up singing this music, but also I love singing pop. That's why I joined the program. So I like doing both. But what's different is with jazz, you can completely change the way you sing it every time. So when we learn our stuff, we learn it just like the original artist did it, the way Paul McCartney sang it, the way Grace Potter sang it, whatever. We learn it exactly like that. The cool thing about jazz is you can completely change the melody if you want to, and make it your own. The first time you sing it, you usually sing it pretty straight to what the melody really is of the song. But later, if you sing it again, the same thing again, the second time you sing it, you can completely change it. So if your voice is tired that day, don't go up for the high note. You don't have to. So it's kind of a cool thing. And you also never know what the band is going to do behind you. So you just have to stand up here and just go with the flow. So those of you who have had to stand through a guitar solo on stage, I have to stand through many of those solos, and you just get used to it. You enjoy what they play because it's coming out of the top of their head, and you just learn to appreciate it rather than be uncomfortable. So that's fun for me. And then now we're going to do something different. We're going to do a ballad. One of my favorite songs of all time. My mom used to sing this when I was young, so I grew up listening to it. I love this song, and I hope you like it too. And it's going to feature Mr. Mike Higgins, who's...
Not again!
I know, on guitar, and you'll get to see a softer side of Mike Higgins. Oh, the song is called A Nightingale Sang in Berkeley Square. That certain night, the night we met, there was magic abroad in the air. There were angels dining at the Ritz, and a nightingale sang in Berkeley Square. I may be right, I may be wrong, but I'm perfectly willing to swear turned and you smiled at me. A nightingale sang in Berkeley Square. The moon that lingered over London town, poor puzzled moon, he wore a frown. How could he know we two were so in love? The whole darn world seemed upside down. The streets of town were paved with stars. It was such a romantic affair. And as we kissed and we said goodnight, a nightingale sang in Berkeley Square. The moon that lingered over London town, poor puzzled moon, he wore a frown. How could he know we two were so in love? The whole darn world seemed upside down. The streets of town were paved with stars. It was such a romantic affair. And as we kissed and said goodnight, a nightingale sang in Berkeley Square. I know 'cause I was there that night in Berkeley Square. I do want to say, Mike Higgins is one of the best accompanists in the world because he's really listening to every little thing that I'm doing. Did you notice that in the beginning? He was completely following me. And because he also does a lot of gigs where he's the only chording instrument, so there's no piano player. So he is responsible for being that accompanist. And so he is really awesome at that, and he's fun to play with. Also, John, what were you playing there? That's a different thing.
This is a flugelhorn. So if any of you have ever heard Chuck Mangione play "Feel So Good," this is one of those. And it comes to prominence every once in a while, and you can hear it on records a lot. But it's a much softer. It's between a trumpet and a French horn, the sound of it. And the way that I like to play it is really soft and really smoky. And so it gets a really, really fuzzy, beautiful kind of sound. So I can play with Nicole and stay out of her way. That's the thing, stay out of her way.
Moving up in the next era, we did kind of the swing era stuff, and then and this was something I didn't know. Rick told me this yesterday. Actually, told everybody yesterday.
Oh no, you really believe me?
Oh, you got it off the internet. People got kind of, the musicians got sick a little bit of playing kind of swing music, and they decided that they wanted to take it.
It was the cabaret tax.
Well, yeah, tell me about that. It's kind of weird. I didn't even really know.
In the 40s, the New York City put a tax on clubs that had a dance floor. They called it a cabaret tax. And so if there was dancing in the club owners had to pay extra money to operate. So they didn't want to do that, so they tore out the dance floors. And then it just became a feature for the musicians. So at that point, since they didn't have to play for dancers anymore, that's where the jazz started to evolve. And that's where the swing beat that we were talking about kind of diminished, and it became more bebop and hard bop in later 60s, as in John Coltrane or Chick Corea.
And a couple of the people that were started this, Charlie Parker, great saxophone player, and also Dizzy Gillespie. And you're going to play Oleo. Was that we're going to? Okay, we're going to do a tune that you can't sing. It's not like as pretty as that last tune, something you can hum on the way home or whatever. Musicians decided instead of playing pretty melodies that they would just make stuff up. And so this is a tune called Oleo, which I don't think they have Oleo anymore, if I'm not mistaken. I think
it was a butter substitute. Like
it used to be a
margarine.
butter substitute, yeah. So how that ever made it into a song, I'm not quite sure. Anyway, this is a tune called Oleo, and this is what the music scene turned into kind of in the late 50s, or late 40s and early 50s. So here we go. We're not playing for anybody. We're in a jazz club, smoky jazz club. We're not playing for dancers. We don't want dancers. We don't want any dancers in here. And can't afford it. What's that? Blenders. Well, you have to have blenders, otherwise the band will not have any fun. So this is a tune called Oleo, and it's based on I've Got Rhythm. It's a tune that I forget who wrote it. Was that George Gershwin or one of those? I've got rhythm, I've got rhythm, I've got rhythm. Who could ask for anything more? And Al Jolson, that's what I'm doing. They wouldn't know that either. I'm doing it in whiteface. That's what I mean. Yes, I am. And anyway, this is that based on that tune, except that you will never hear that tune. You're hearing the chord changes on it, and anyway, this is called Oleo. So it's up to how fast we wish to play this. You want to count it, John? If you find any fingers out there, they're ours. Just bring them back up here. You want to do a Latin tune? Sure. Yeah, you got other bass there. I mean, what would you like to play on Latin-wise? I mean, I brought Triste.
Well, that's fine, yeah.
You want to do that? Okay. All right. We're switching basses here.
There's some interesting things about the bebop era.
Ooh.
Like
yes, there are.
So, one thing was that the musicians were getting tired of playing dance music and playing dances because they were really grueling. A lot of the bands were doing, 6 or 8 sets, starting in the mid-afternoon and working into the wee hours in the night. And the big bands were just wasted. The guys were just overworked. And people wanted a different musical outlet and a different scene. And so people started putting together smaller groups and playing for the fun of it. And one thing about bebop is that they were both playing really, really fast. A lot of it was playing faster. And also is more harmonically complex, mostly because of a lot because of Dizzy Gillespie, infusing different chords and infusing different sounds into that music. So you hear a lot of flat fifths. You hear a lot of this dissonance, this kind of anger, tension, and release. It's not just all happy music. It's a little more edgy. So this was equivalent from like Led Zeppelin happening, and then all of a sudden things like the Dead Kennedys happening and punk rock. Like bebop was the punk rock. This guy's really virtuoso players that were wanting to expand their musical palette.
Also, if any keyboard players are interested, there's a series of when you play jazz, and I know pretty much how everybody plays here. When you got a lot of like roots in the left hand and then chords in the right hand, it's a little different in jazz. And there's like this series of what they call voicings for the left hand that have this kind of jazzy sound to them. And I have it's actually a formula, and I have some sheets here if you're interested, for those of you who are keyboard players, to show what that left hand, how it works in jazz, because it's a very specific kind of a thing. A major 7th chord sounds like this, a minor 7th chord sounds like this, dominant 7th chord sounds like this, whatever. So it was a formula, and it was actually taught to me by a guy who lived in Costa Mesas, wonderful keyboard player. And he showed me the little the formula for it. It's something that's helped me like learn how to write for like large groups of ensembles or whatever. But I've got it here. So at the end of the day, if you're interested in checking it out, we're going to do a Latin tune, and we switched to a nylon string guitar, and this is a tune called Triste. Who wrote this? This is Antonio Carlos Jobim. Jobim. Sorry, that just. Triste means sad. You want to do the B flat, E flat? Yeah. How fast? Okay. What would be a good tempo? Tracy, Gordon Peak on the drums there. How about that great bass solo, Mr. Rick Shaw? All right, it's time to bring in our closer, and we're calling for Anthony. Come on. All right. Yeah. Yeah, I know that guy.
Who are you? Yeah.
We call him our closer because he's going to close out the show here, and he does a fabulous job. He should be working the Hollywood Bowl. He should be working Harbor Boulevard, parking structures everywhere. And Anthony is truly an amazing guitar player, an amazing singer, and a very cool guy. And it's a lot of fun for us to get a chance to work with him. And he kicks our butt. And what is there an actual name for this tune we're doing here? Or,
Well, it's just a blues shuffle in E, but
It's-
I sing Dust My Broom.
it's called Dust My Broom in E. For those of you who are keeping track of the key signatures today.
I'll be all right. All right. You guys hear enough of me every day.
The great thing about Anthony is that there's no question about what we are going to be doing once he starts playing. There's like all this stuff about jazz and listening to this guy and listening to this guy. This is getting on a freight train and just taking it east.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, man. In that case, how about
I totally skipped you last time. You want to do some solos?
Yeah, we gotta have him solo. Yeah.
What were you saying about fours? You want to do that?
The fours?
All right, just do fours. Or whatever. Let's do it. All right, here we go. A 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3.
In the morning to dust my broom.
telegram. Send her a telegram. I gotta let her know, oh, how blue I am. Now get up 2 in the morning to dust my broom. 2 in the morning to dust my broom. Will my baby get back to my room?
Thank you.